Escalating tensions in the South China Sea, fueled by China's assertive actions and territorial disputes, particularly with the Philippines, underscore the region's geopolitical complexity. Recent events, such as the presence of Chinese vessels near Whitsun Reef, intensify concerns, prompting diplomatic responses and joint military patrols. The risk of escalation, challenges in dispersing vessels, and the delicate geopolitical balance between China and the U.S. heighten the stakes. The Philippines navigates this landscape through diplomatic strategies and aligning with allies. The situation remains fluid, with potential implications for a broader international conflict, making it a critical area to monitor. In recent years, tensions have escalated in the South China Sea as China, asserting its dominance, has militarized disputed islands and clashed with neighboring nations over conflicting territorial claims in this strategically vital and resource-rich waterway. China's expansionist moves, including the occupation of remote reefs and atolls, have triggered concerns from neighboring countries like the Philippines, which argue that these actions infringe on their sovereignty and violate maritime law. The United States, supporting the stance of its allies, regularly conducts freedom of navigation operations in the area.
People's Republic of China continues to advance its illegitimate claims in the West Philippine Sea,
raising fears of a potential flashpoint between the U.S. and China, two global superpowers. The South China Sea, spanning 1.3 million square miles, holds immense global significance, serving as a crucial international trade route with approximately one-third of global shipping, valued in trillions of dollars, passing through annually. Beyond trade, the region boasts vast fishing grounds vital for countless livelihoods. Despite an international tribunal ruling favoring the Philippines in 2016, which contested China's sweeping claims, Beijing has not relented, deploying its maritime militia to disputed zones, thereby escalating tensions. Furthermore, China's ambitious naval buildup, featuring the world's largest fleet and advanced military capabilities, has added a new dimension to this geopolitical landscape, prompting concerns about the potential environmental and security impacts in the region. Under President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr., the Philippines has adopted a more assertive stance in safeguarding its claims, leading to recent confrontations with Chinese vessels. These incidents underscore China's growing assertiveness and confidence, particularly in dealing with smaller nations like the Philippines. The global implications of these tensions are significant, as the South China Sea remains a potential flashpoint for broader international conflicts. With the Philippines being a U.S. treaty ally, confrontations have raised concerns among Western observers, highlighting the delicate balance between China and the U.S. in the region and the potential for these tensions to evolve into a broader international incident. As the geopolitical landscape continues to evolve, the South China Sea remains a critical area to watch for its impact on global trade, security, and diplomatic relations. In a major concerning development, approximately 135 Chinese vessels were identified near Whitsun Reef, off the coast of the western Philippine island province of Palawan, raising alarms and exacerbating tensions in the already disputed South China Sea. While the precise intentions of these vessels remain unclear, the strategic move is perceived as a means for China to assert its presence and challenge the ability of neighboring countries, such as the Philippines, to contest its actions. The Philippines, led by National Security Advisor Eduardo Año, responded promptly to this development by ordering the Coast Guard to patrol the area and address what is deemed an illegal presence of Chinese vessels in waters falling within the Philippines' sovereign rights. The Whitsun Reef is within the 200 nautical miles off the coast, governed by international maritime law. The vessels, some of which were reportedly clustered together, present a potential challenge to law enforcement, with their scattered formations securing the perimeter of the reef. Despite attempts by the Philippines Coast Guard to communicate with the Chinese vessels, no response was received by the growing cluster of boats, thereby adding uncertainty to already growing tensions in the region.
Philippine Coast Guard Vessel 4403.
China's increasing assertiveness in the South China Sea is evident in its expansive territorial claims. Employing what analysts term as gray zone tactics, China avoids actions constituting armed attacks, but resorts to measures such as military-grade lasers, water cannons, and threats against Philippine boats. Maritime security expert J. Batong Bakal notes that anchoring ships in contested areas is a tactic employed by China to intimidate local communities and deny other countries like the Philippines a presence in these crucial maritime zones.
And therefore are subject to sovereignty disputes. No? And since it is disputed, the Philippines could not take forceful measures like war.
With heightened tensions, the Philippines, under President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., has not only sought closer military ties with the U.S., but has also publicly criticized China's actions, aiming to both deter Chinese aggression and impose a reputational cost on Beijing in the international arena.
遵守中国的国内法和国际法，避免干扰影响中国海警在上述海域的巡航执法。
Recently, tensions in the South China Sea escalated as Chinese Coast Guard ship narrowly avoided colliding with a Philippine patrol ship near Second Thomas Shoal, intensifying concerns about potential crises arising from territorial disputes in the region. The Philippines strongly condemned the provocative maneuvers by the Chinese vessel, which attempted to obstruct a Philippine patrol ship near the disputed shoal. This incident unfolded over 8 hours, involving the blockage of another Philippine Coast Guard vessel by Chinese Coast Guard and militia ships. The dangerous encounter witnessed the BRP Sindangan, a Philippine Coast Guard vessel, reversing rapidly to avoid a collision with the Chinese ship, highlighting the gravity of the situation. The incident represented the closest and most hazardous maneuver by a Chinese Coast Guard ship against a Philippine patrol ship, according to Philippine Coast Guard spokesperson Commodore J. Terriella. The deliberate actions of the Chinese Coast Guard, coupled with radio assertions of indisputable sovereignty over Second Thomas Shoal, underscored China's growing assertiveness in the maritime disputes.
Hindi na tayo nagtatago ng kahit na anong insidente. Lahat ng nangyayari sa West Philippine Sea, we have been very transparent. Hindi lang to para sa international community to support us, but for everybody to be aware.
This incident followed a pattern of aggressive Chinese tactics in the South China Sea, including the use of water cannons against Philippine supply boats and threats to hit Philippine vessels, as revealed in previous confrontations. The territorial tensions in the South China Sea are part of long-standing disputes involving China, the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, Taiwan, and Brunei. As both regional and global powers navigate this volatile situation, the incident underscores the fragility of the status quo in the contested waters. Against the backdrop of heightened tensions in the South China Sea, the United States and the Philippines launched joint air and maritime patrols near the northernmost province of the Philippines, Batanes. These patrols involved the Philippine Air Force and navies from both nations, represented an intensified collaboration in response to China's escalating assertiveness in the region. Occurring just 200 kilometers from Taiwan, a self-governed island claimed by China, the joint efforts aim to counteract China's growing maritime activities. Philippines President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has characterized the situation as dire, underscoring concerns about China's attempts to reinforce its presence amid conflicting territorial claims. Recent aggressive incidents, such as a Chinese Coast Guard ship using a water cannon against a Philippine supply ship and a collision near a contested shoal, highlight the urgency of addressing China's actions. These joint patrols followed a series of incidents involving China, accentuating the need for a coordinated response. The patrols served as a testament to the commitment to enhancing military interoperability and signified the Philippines' strategic shift under Marcos to strengthen ties with the U.S. and deepen regional security cooperation. This move aligns with broader efforts by the Biden administration to fortify military alliances in the Indo-Pacific region as a countermeasure against China's influence. Simultaneously, the Philippines and Australia also initiated joint sea and air patrols in response to escalating tensions in the South China Sea. Following similar moves with the United States, the three-day exercises underscored the commitment of both nations to a rules-based order in the face of China's increasing assertiveness. The Permanent Court of Arbitration in 2016 rejected China's claims as having no legal basis, highlighting the contentious nature of the region. In the Philippines' efforts to counter what it terms as China's aggressive activities, joint patrols with key allies, including Australia and the United States, became strategic endeavors. These joint patrols, however, drew accusations from China, asserting that the Philippines is involving foreign forces in South China Sea patrols. thereby stirring up trouble. However, the Philippines maintained that these maritime activities fall within its rights, reflecting the complex geopolitical landscape in the region. In the wake of growing tensions in the disputed South China Sea, a war of words has unfolded between China and the Philippines. The Philippines, led by President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., has expressed deep concerns about China's escalating assertiveness in the region. President Marcos characterized the situation as dire, highlighting apprehension about China's attempts to reinforce its presence in an area marked by conflicting territorial claims.
We must oppose the dangerous use of Coast Guard and maritime militia vessels in the South China Sea. We are concerned over illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing and the militarization of reclaimed features in the South China Sea.
China, in response to joint air and maritime patrols initiated by the Philippines with the United States and Australia, has engaged in verbal sparring. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson conveyed Beijing's clear position to both the Philippines and the U.S., emphasizing that joint patrol drills must not undermine China's territorial sovereignty and maritime rights and interests.
中方对此表示严正抗议和强烈不满，敦促菲方尊重中国在南海的领土主权和海洋权益。
China has accused the Philippines of enlisting foreign forces to patrol the South China Sea, asserting that such actions stir up trouble. Despite China's objections, the Philippines maintains that these maritime activities are within its rights. Taking into account the situation involving the presence of numerous Chinese vessels at the disputed South China Sea reef within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone has heightened tensions between the two nations. The Philippines Coast Guard described the Chinese vessels as swarming at the Whitsun Reef, which the Philippines refers to as Julian Philippe Reef, expressing alarm at the growing presence. The Philippines has disputed China's claim that the vessels are merely fishing boats, emphasizing that they appear to be symbolic in nature, with some vessels tied together side to side in lines. The Philippines National Security Council spokesperson, Jonathan Malaya, noted that the ships, while possibly having a skeleton crew, were deployed to assert territorial claims and protested against China's actions. It's the use of the tactic called rafting, where ships are tied together to establish semi-persistent floating outposts, has been identified by experts. China's subsidization of this activity, involving the so-called Spratly backbone vessels, aims to establish effective control over Whitsun Reef. The Philippines Coast Guard, in response to the situation, has ordered maritime patrols to challenge and document the presence of the Chinese maritime militia in the reef. However, China has dismissed Philippine concerns, maintaining that the reef is part of its Nansha Islands and the vessels are lawfully operating in Chinese waters. The Philippines' strategy of assertive transparency involves leveraging international support, conducting joint patrols with allies like the US and Australia, and building up its Coast Guard capabilities to navigate the complex geopolitical landscape and stand up to China. While the situation poses a significant risk of escalating tensions, whether it evolves into a potential powder keg of war depends on diplomatic efforts, international responses, and the actions of the involved parties in the coming days and weeks. Dispersing a large number of Chinese vessels at the Whitsun Reef within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone presence a formidable challenge for several reasons. Firstly, the Philippine Coast Guard may face challenges due to limited maritime assets and resources. Spin vessels across a vast maritime area, as seen in the Whitsun Reef, require substantial patrol boats and naval vessels. The Philippines' maritime enforcement capabilities might be stretched thin, making it difficult to cover and monitor the expansive region effectively. Additionally, attempting to disperse the Chinese vessels carries a significant risk of escalation and potential military confrontation. The presence of the Chinese maritime militia operating as a paramilitary force adds complexity to the situation. Given the power imbalance, the Philippines may be cautious about taking direct actions that could provoke a military response from China. Furthermore, the Philippines has adopted an assertive transparency strategy, emphasizing diplomatic efforts and international visibility to address the situation. Instead of opting for direct confrontation, the Philippines focuses on garnering international support, conducting joint patrols with allies, and engaging in diplomatic initiatives. This aligns with the strategy of deploying maritime patrols to challenge the presence of the Chinese maritime militia and seeking support from like-minded nations. Amidst these challenges, the Armed Forces of the Philippines believes that the Chinese militia vessels are not solely engaged in fishing activities, but may be conducting illegal actions. Possible activities include reclamation, oil and gas explorations, or coral harvesting. The Philippines seeks international support to uphold the rule of law in the region, acknowledging the physical challenge of dispersing all the militia vessels. As a response, there are discussions about potential multilateral joint patrols in the West Philippine Sea, involving countries like the US, Australia, Japan, France, the United Kingdom, Canada, and South Korea. This approach emphasizes a collaborative and diplomatic solution to address the complexities of the situation. In the midst of heightened tensions in the South China Sea, where the Philippines and China find themselves embroiled in a complex maritime dispute, various options exist for both nations to consider as a way forward. Diplomatic dialogue and mediation emerge as a primary avenue for resolution. Both China and the Philippines could engage in formal negotiations, leveraging regional platforms or multilateral forums to foster peaceful dialogue. Another viable option is joint resource development, presenting an alternative to alleviate tensions in contested areas by exploring collaborative ventures and mechanisms for sharing natural resources like fisheries or energy reserves. Both nations can derive economic benefits while mitigating the strain arising from territorial disputes. This cooperative strategy not only fosters economic gains, but also contributes to regional stability. An additional pathway is international arbitration or adjudication, wherein both China and the Philippines advocate for or voluntarily submit to established legal frameworks, such as the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea Coast. Seeking resolution through legal channels emphasizes a commitment to upholding international norms and pursuing impartial adjudication, thereby fostering a rules-based approach to conflict resolution in the South China Sea. Each of these options presents a unique way forward, offering potential solutions to the complex challenges faced by the nations involved in the maritime dispute.